Good afternoon. We'll call the session to order.
You have a gavel. If you want, you have a gavel if you want it.
Oh, hey.
There she goes.
Good afternoon. We'll call the session to order. Roll call.
Councillor Woodruff,
Here.
Mayor Buell, Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie,
Here.
Councillor Youssef. Here. Councillor Bosmans. It appears that Councillor Bosmans is online, but not unmuted.
Is he unmuted? Is he here?
He's here, but did not roll call, so we'll have it marked on Faye's portion and we can go on to the next item.
Alrighty. Shall we do the reading of the Indigenous ordinance?
Yes, reading of the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement. Next up, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, we have wildfire identifiable challenges in our community by Chief Randy Black. If you all will recall, Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie, this was a request for you that was supported by the council to have Chief Black come and speak about the letter to the community that he did recently. So Chief Black.
Good afternoon, everybody. I actually have a handout. If you're all right, I will just come pass them out to everybody. So thank you for the invitation today to come talk to you. One of the reasons I did not get a PowerPoint is that the data that's in here you'll see is very current as of 2 days ago, and it's difficult for us to be able to have a presentation 2 weeks ago with current data with the changing weather conditions. So appreciate the opportunity to come chat with you today and to provide this information. So the update, obviously, for our wildfires not looking very good, as Councillor Woodruff is aware, being on the WPF and working together on some of this. The moisture that we've received this winter is pretty subpar. We've seen a substantial number of fires already in the county, in the region, in the district, and throughout the country in different areas, which is a pretty early start to the fire season. We use data points, indices, and different objective qualifiers to try to forecast what's going to happen for the fire season. We never know exactly what it's going to be until it happens, but we do try to forecast, and we use objective data, repeatable data, and we look historically and forward to be able to take our historic data, project that forward, and see what we should be in for. So the information that's included in here will be able to help provide that information. We look at snowpack, water equivalents. We look at weather trends to the south and west particular of what's forecasted coming into our area, and drought conditions, soil moisture, atmospheric trends, and then fuel moisture. If you turn to the first graph, you will see the snow water equivalent, and this first graph is for Red Mountain Pass. This is the best of the graphs you're going to see, by the way. And you'll see that we're at 90%. The dark green line that runs through your graph right in the middle is the 30-year median. And so we're at 90% of the 30-year median up high. So at the above 10,000 foot level, we're not sitting horrible right now. If you turn to the next page, this is Spud Mountain. Now we're moving further south, closer to the top of Coalbank and Molis area up by the Spud Lake. And you'll see at that point, we're at 57% of the 30-year median. So obviously, as we're transitioning south, we're seeing a significant decrease in the snowpack availability. If you continue through the next one, Cascade number 2 is near the Cascade curve. And all of a sudden, we're at a 31% of our median snowpack. The other thing to look, if you go back, sorry, I'm going to backtrack just a minute. If you go back to the very first one, and it says in tiny letters in there, it talks about the peak, and you'll see it on the calendar. The peak is 54 days away is the median peak, and you see that trend already starting to drop. The next one, and obviously at the lower elevations, they peak sooner, so you'll see those peaks change. So when we get to the Cascade, the peak is actually today is the typical peak for the Cascade snowpack, and then it starts to decline, and we're at 31% of the 30-year average. When you get into the Vallecito Creek area, we're at 51% of the median average. So our lack of snow cover in south and west of our location may also lessen the moisture that's available to the storms. We've had a high pressure ridge that's sitting there. Obviously, the snow that we received yesterday helped. There's forecast at the end of the week. We'll take whatever we can get. Everything helps postpone and build towards that significant deficit that we have. I saw on a fire forecast the other day that the Flagstaff, Arizona area normally receives 58.7 inches of snow in the year. They've received 8. So they are 50 inches of snow to get to their average for this year. So this is not isolated specifically to us, but clearly to the southwest area where the central mountains of Colorado are in a much better spot and North Colorado is in a better spot. There are some areas in New Mexico and Arizona, some of the basins that have a 0% median snowpack. If you turn to the next page, the wildfire outlook with the yellow and orange on there, where there's way too much yellow and orange. By the end of last year, if you recall, we had a fairly wet summer and a fairly wet spring. So with a significant rainfall that we had, it was a decent winter, but we had a lot of rain through the spring and the summer. We were actually out of the drought. So if you had looked at this map, by the end of last summer, we were actually in the white area where there would not have been any drought. And now you can see we're already in the D2, so the severe drought is already creeping up almost to the southern limits of the city right now, as that drought area significantly worsens around us. The next map looks at soil moisture, and you can see again that we are somewhere in the 5 to 20% soil moisture in the southern part of our district, where when you get up top closer to the mountain areas, we're up in the 95 to 98%. So much better, consistent with those snow reports that you saw in those first pieces. So our low elevations have seen very little precipitation. Our drought is increasing and likely to worsen. The fire maps that actually came out the day after this was prepared showed that June we should be ready for above average fire conditions in the southwest part of Colorado. 2002 and 2018, 2002 being Missionary Ridge Fire, 2018 being 416 Fire, were also dry winters that had followed 2 years of average or better monsoons consistent to where we are right now. So from a statistical standpoint and a forecasting standpoint, we are set up typical to the summers that we had the last 2 significant fires in our area. 2022 started as an active fire season, but the monsoons came in very early, turned on, and really hadn't shut off. So we ended up with the latter half of 22, all of 23 and 24 were fairly insignificant in the area. As far as a preparation standpoint, Durango Fire has 4 full-time wildfire staff who are on 24/7 or throughout the whole year, staff for 12 months that are full-time. We bring on approximately 18 seasonal folks that come on for the summer to help us expand our capacity and be able to address the wildfire threat to our community. There are also the other local departments have increased their staffing in the last 3 years. Local, state, and federal agencies are preparing as we speak. There's a wildfire academy going on right now at our station and down in Ignacio, where we have over 170 local participants, local firefighters that are getting training to get advanced level or additional CEs and trainings to be prepared for this year. Our collaboration with our local partners continues to increase and becomes more effective, as well as our state and local partners as well. The state, as you recall, I believe when we've talked about this a little bit in the past, when we get a fire that exceeds our capacity, we punt it to the sheriff. That is the fire warden for the county. The sheriff does not have any firefighting equipment or personnel, but they are the box that needs to be checked. So we go to the sheriff then punts it to the state. So if we get a fire in our area that exceeds our capacity, we basically go through him as a kind of check mark to get access to state resources. That's where all the aircraft are. So if it's within our district, it would be state resources. If it's in a federal district, so if it's on BIA, BLM, Forest Service, then the Forest Service, the federal resources would come in and they would take the ownership of that fire and provide the aircraft for it. So, so in a very quick run through, because I see you have a full house and I was told to try to keep it a little bit short today. That is the crux of where we're sitting right now. On the last page, that picture is actually a really good picture for you all to see. This was on Barn Roof Point in the Lightner Creek area, and you can see the fire burning in the middle there. And when we talk about boxing something in the seats, the single engine air tankers that do the drops, you can see where they've boxed it. So they hit this on all 4 sides to basically not let the fire out of that. So it was just a great visual example of the type of work that we've got, where the state provided that aircraft for a fire that was a local managed fire that we had. Any questions?
Chief, we obviously talked a lot about what's actionable, but maybe this is a good opportunity to know what can constituents, both city and county, do. Like, what's actionable? What can we do? What sort of potential grant funding is available? I know the grant situation is a little funky right now with the feds, but what opportunities are there for potential mitigation before we even get into our fire season? Yeah,
thank you. And as Councilor Yazzie pointed out, the letter that I sent to all of you in January was, our staff of 4 is normally pretty slow around January, February, and there's typically not much. They're sharpening equipment and getting ready for this equipment and getting ready to hire people. And we went from that to having 142 requests for property assessments to do mitigation work. So they weren't super happy with me for sending that letter out because they got slammed. And then shortly after the letter went out, when I said we have this grant funding available, the grant dried up. So we are still doing the assessments. So if you go to our website, we will have somebody who's trained in the home assessments will come out and look at your property, give you an idea on what you should do to make your property fire safe. There's Wildfire Adapted Partnerships has been a great resource and a partner with ours in the community that's always available to do that work. We do have, as you know, working with you, there is some grant money that's available that we're looking at to do some projects, particularly for some of the underserved areas in the city and the county. We are still working through multiple programs and collaborating with our partners with the city, our partners with the county, ourselves, and other partners to try to continue to do some mitigation projects. That's where we feel like the wins are going to happen. When there's smoke in the air, it's too late to do anything. So you've got to do that work now. I actually just found out today that the wildfire resiliency code that's coming out is not for cities. which was a little surprising to me to find out that it's been counties only. Cities can adopt. I'd actually talked with Aaron about this already, saying, hey, this is coming. Here's some codes that are going to affect us, and found out today that they are not included in cities. It is something that probably could be looked at by the city, but you would not be under the same timeline as the county would be to adopt that. But any codes that are providing a fire safe location, that are reducing the risk of an individual property catching fire, thereby threatening the adjacent properties, is obviously helpful. So mitigation at this point is going to be the key. We're already having internal discussions of staffing changes and trying to rearrange, and where we would put maybe 5 people on one truck, of having 2 trucks so they can split off and be able to handle multiple fires at the same time. So we're looking internal at things, and then again, trying to help encourage the residents to take the action to move forward and try to do some mitigation and help us from their end and make their properties defendable.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Appreciate all you're doing out there.
If I may, I just wanted to say thank you, Randy, for that update. Very, very beneficial. And I had a technical issue, but I heard all your presentations, so appreciate it.
Yeah, and I will leave a copy of this for you, Councilor Bosman. So it's here, and I'll leave a copy for Jess as well. So everybody has one. They are helpful because it's got the graphs, and you can take them and travel with them as well if you're meeting with other people, and it's not just something that I have in a presentation that I leave with me.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for giving the presentation. So the city is going to be getting ready for fire season, because I think it's really critical. That's why I invited you here. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you for the invitation. Always happy to come present to you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a financial services monthly report. Elliot Fitz.
All right. Well, thank you, Mayor, Council, Jose. This is the monthly report for financial services. So just a reminder, we are looking at January. Whoop. Okay. There you go. Okay. So just a reminder, we are looking at the January monthly financial services report and departmental update, just due to the timing of when we close financials and when we can make this report to you. And one other quick tidbit on this month in particular, since we are looking at just 1 month, the 2025 actual can be a little bit hard to see on the presentation, but I promise you the dots are on there. They will get easier to see once they actually become lines and we add the February data. So preliminary sales tax revenue forecast, we are about 10% above what we had projected, which is absolutely great, and about 3% above where we were last year. Next, we have the general fund revenue forecast. Actuals, we were about 12% below our seasonally adjusted forecast. The reason for that, and this is pretty consistent with the messaging that we were giving last year, is that the intergovernmental revenues that we anticipate are always paid in arrears. So we are still waiting, by the time of making this presentation, we were still waiting on booking some of those funds, but we don't have any concerns about the variance that we have in the general fund revenue. Next, we have the general fund expense budget actuals, and we were about 10% below our seasonally adjusted forecast. And again, year to date, we're only through January. We're 10% below our forecast. And again, in general, being under our forecasted budget is a good thing. Next, we have enterprise funds projected revenues to actuals. In this, the revenues were about 12% above our revenue projections, which is great. And we expect them to increase all the way through December. And then enterprise expenses, they were about 25% below our seasonally adjusted expense forecast. That 25% is a little bit big of a number, but I would like to just point out the scale of what we're looking at. We were projecting 2.6 million and actual expenses were 2 million. We are monitoring the services and making sure that all service delivery is within our expectations. Again, we have it's within our expected range of variance, excuse me. So nothing too concerning there. And then next we have capital fund projected revenue to actuals. We were about 3% below our seasonally adjusted revenue projection. So really we were pretty close to what we anticipated. And moving on to capital expenses, we were forecasting just because of the season, somewhere around $0 for expenses in actuals for our capital funds. And we actually had about $6,200. So pretty accurate with that forecast. And then next, we have just accounting and budget and strategic plan updates. Budget amendment passed February 19th. Thank you all for your support. Accounting is working through year-end close still and working on the annual audit. And we did receive the award for financial excellence from GFOA. So thank you, accounting team. We are so lucky to have you. And then fleet and facilities, 44 special requests for facilities, 160 work orders closed, 179 pieces of inventory issued over the counter. That's both to external customers and internal departments. The finance window project was complete, where we added 3 windows to this building, the City Hall building. 900 Main remodel is complete, and the City Hall remodel and office rearrangement, since we've added the 900 Main building, has started. And with customer service for the bulk water fill station, we have added a new online payment system. And with that, that is our update, and I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you for the update. Excuse me. I just wanted to have a bit of insight in the costs incurred and planned to be incurred for the remodel of the new offices at Main Street.
Yeah, we've worked that into mostly the 2024 budget, and I don't have the exact dollar amount off the top of my head, and it's been worked through operationally, but I would say that we've made every effort for cost savings and make sure that we're efficient in everything that we do. And that is the same with the changes that we're making to City Hall.
Sorry, excuse me. The lease was only recently signed for that building. So was that already anticipated, all the renovations? And is there no indication of magnitude? Are we speaking of $10,000, $100,000, more than $1 million?
Certainly not more than $10,000. Pretty light work that we've done down there. And yes, the transfer of the lease has gone through our legal department and it was planned for.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
I feel like we glossed over an important point. Remind me the award that you all received.
Sure. Yeah, it was the award for financial excellence from the Government Finance Officers Association. It's a pretty coveted award from GFOA, the prominent association for government finance nationally and even internationally. They work with Canada too.
It seems like an achievement for excellence in financial reporting.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome work. Keep up the good work. We're really proud of that. So something that you should all be too. Let's make sure that we're tooting that horn a little bit to recognize the achievements that's not easy to come by. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mayor and Council, we'll go to Innovative Housing and Economic Development, and we have a Community Development Monthly Report.
Good afternoon, Daniel Murray, Community Development. Going to kick things off with our customer service strategy. We have this in the entry of our building and something we tie all of our actions to. The 3 main tenets being professional and efficient assistance in an accessible environment, clear, comprehensive, and consistent communication, and facilitating context-sensitive solutions, which is very much part of what we do with projects that come in our door. We collaborate weekly on how we are meeting the code and also meeting the applicant's intended desire. This is a redo of what we presented to you a month ago. The question was, how do our volume and both valuation and permitting volume compare outside of the city? So I have one illustration here for you. This is the county on the right side of the screen. They have a different relationship occurring where their valuations are trending down and ours are trending up, as you can see. The other slide here was volume of permits, and that is in alignment where the city is experiencing a steady trend downward, and that is also occurring at the county level. I broadened our lens a little more and reached out to 2 other jurisdictions. That was Golden, because they are a 20,000 population. However, Golden, and they were pretty forthright, they've just seen upward valuation, upward permit volume, and they believe that's entirely due to the metro area pressure that they receive. So, and they're surrounded, they're pretty constrained in where they can grow. So they're kind of a bit of an anomaly. The other example that we looked out to, which is comparable, is Steamboat. And Steamboat, and it's a bit different because Routt County handles their building permitting for the city of Steamboat, so they're a partner in that sense. So their data is aggregate, but had a good conversation with their building official. And when it comes to single family homes, it's very much the same trend that Durango is experiencing: higher value, lower volume. That's good for comparison for Routt County as well as majority of Steamboat. Now their valuations are just off the chart. They said they've experienced development of a scale that they've not seen before. They have a $450 million base resort style condo being built, which is going to skew their data forever. So there are some exceptions occurring in resort communities like Steamboat, but on a whole, what we're seeing with slowing permit volume as well as increased valuation is what we see in a town like Steamboat. So hopefully that's helpful. A glimpse of what's occurring. This is also January data. So we'll take a look first at planning projects. We have 47 projects submitted and 38 permits issued. There are still, however, 81 projects under review in planning. Another piece of the service we provide is code compliance. 34 cases opened and 29 cases closed. That is a great testament. Again, I've spoken to our code enforcement officer who's doing a bit of double duty right now with also building inspections, and he's staying on top of our code compliance need, and that leaves roughly 14 code cases under review, which is an ideal number. We want to keep that pretty minimal. And then jumping to the third category, building permitting, we received 26 permits in the month of January. We issued 23. There's still another 37 permits under review, so they're going through our building code plan review, and then 105 under construction. So 105 active building permits in the city right now. Those are all the job sites you see as you drive around, some more visible than others. I'll highlight a few for you. We've historically come and brought the long list, but I bolded 3 on top that I thought you might find interesting. So 229 Buena Vida is in Three Springs. It's the rendering you see on the bottom right. This is a vacant lot just half a block off of the core of Three Springs, the Mercado. And it's going to be a great infill project because everything around it is apartments and townhomes. So this fits quite well. If this were in a different part of Three Springs, you may say that's a little bit too dense, but this is not the single family portion. This is the commercial and multifamily aspect of Three Springs, really close to that core. Another notable project that's under review right now is a childcare facility at County Road 250-251. It's the old vault location, which is for sale and is under contract, and the purchaser wants to bring a childcare facility that's already in the city. This would be an expanded area for their operations. And then the third one, you may be familiar with Studs Lumber. They're on Highway 160 across from the Fun Center. They've purchased a property on Highway 3, which is currently the RV sales and service. That's going to be Stud Lumber's future place of business. I believe they're still going to keep their Highway 3 location, but they're bringing the lumberyard component into the city limits. Happy to speak to any of these other projects, but you're quite familiar with them as we've presented on them over time. A few others that are under construction. We have a photo here of Starbucks, and this was even taken 2 weeks ago. Starbucks is making rapid progress. Every time, if you drive by, you'll see it's much farther along now. So in the background, that's the Maverick, that little red band. And so this is in the foreground at the roundabout, one lot off the roundabout in Wilson Gulch. And then the property on the right, I thought I would bring it back to you. This is Animas Cliffs. It's 8 townhomes, but what's unique about this is that this is the upper limits of the city limits. So here we are, that red dashed line, that everything beyond the red dashed line is the Animas Valley. And so that is a project that is also going vertical if you drive by for 8 townhome units. My goal as I do these and as Jamie and I do these is to bring as many photos back and to tell our story of what's going on. So here we have our building inspector, the gentleman in the green vest out at Affinity. In the background, that's the Volunteers of America apartment complex. So Affinity Complex is 9 different foundations for 126 units that's under construction. Shane is also in the right side photograph there doing a roofing inspection for a single family home in Three Springs. The last example of community development out in action is one where we are partnering with our colleagues in Parks and Rec. This is a dedicated or proposed to be dedicated trail easement just behind the new medical office building, and that is over the shoulders of the gentleman in orange. You see that building. It looks very small, but it's actually a rather large building just behind Mercy. And the green roof building you see is the senior living facility, Mesa Verde. So these are the trails that take you further up and that connect ultimately into Horse Gulch. But as part of this development was a commitment for a trail dedication. So we see that here connecting our trails right to our community. And that concludes my presentation.
Any questions?
First off, I just want to say, Daniel, thank you so much for doing the diligence to reach out to peer county or peer communities and figure out, what sort of trends they're seeing also. I think it's important to take a look at what other data points other communities have that are similar, and is our data anomalous or does it kind of fit in line? So thank you so much for doing some homework there and reaching out, and gives us, I think, better bearing about what we're doing, how we're doing it, and then how we're going to really move the needle with housing. So thanks for doing that. And man, it's a good time to be on community development. There's so many great projects out there right now. So thanks for all the work.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council. Mike French, Prosperity Officer. I'm going to give you a brief highlight on some updates in tourism, housing, and economic development. As I briefly review the mission, vision, and values, this week we have the Sterling examiners in with our team, and it's really interesting to see how these mission, vision, and values really come to life. As I sit in these meetings and talk to the examiners about our programming and listen to my peers talk about the interdepartmental activity, it's really interesting to see that these things are not just something that we read every time we get up here or that we look on a poster board, but that we're actually living them day in and day out in our business. So I highlight these as I talk about the collective mission of housing, tourism, and economic opportunity. It is, our mission is to enhance the quality of life of the residents, celebrate a multi-generational community by promoting equitable access to attainable housing, fostering inclusive economic growth, and elevating the city as a vibrant destination which is strongly in line with our vision and mission. Not much has changed since I provided a Q4 update in January to the council, but I will highlight a couple of updates. The residents of Durango is still trying to open. They'll open hopefully in the month of March, which is this month. If you've driven by 160, you can see that they're actively working on the water line. That's the one thing that is the gating factor. We'll have the front half of it, I believe, open in a couple of weeks. My guess is we'll have occupancy by the end of March. They are still actively taking applications and working on a waiting list. The front half, as a reminder, is 48 units. Collectively, it's 72 units, all under a 60 AMI, and that will give us great progress to achieving our goal of affordable housing. And I'll go through some of those numbers in just a second. The Rivergate property that we purchased in December will actually start to put out an RFQ and look for a development partner. And it's a little aggressive, but we'll try to get the RFQ out by April. Just as a reminder, we purchased a single parcel that had enough capacity for 31 affordable units. If we're successful, we'll convince a development partner to come in and think about an expansive project, as we have right of first refusal on the subsequent property that gives us up to 70 units of density that will look to make all affordable housing. The leasing for locals contract that we signed a couple of years ago will expire in November of this year, so we're starting to wind that down, and we'll look for opportunities of how we can continue some of leasing and subsidy programs through our partners, which is Housing Solutions and Homes Fund. Homes Fund just received a significant grant from DOLA. I'm sorry, from OEDIT, from the Prop 123 monies in excess of $2 million. And that's 42 loans over the course of the next 3 years. And that will have some impact for us quite a bit. The overall numbers and objectives that we're running to is the Prop 123 baselined us, and we have an objective to get 9% growth over 3 years to get to 184 units of affordable housing. Today, without counting anything that's listed here, we're at 53. If we add the 72 units of the residences by the summer, we'll be at 125. And then a couple of these other projects, I think, will get us across the goal line. So very anxious. We have until December of 26 to meet that objective. So I feel like we're on track. We'll hear a little bit more about the merger and the concept of the Prosperity Office this evening as I give some information around the ordinance and the first consideration. But just an update, the Welcome Center is fully integrated. Operations are functioning as normal. Just today, we got a request from BID to see if we could open it up early, as we potentially do a farmer's market on Main Street one day a month. And so we're starting to see a lot of opportunities and a lot of reach from the community into the Welcome Center. Still on track to potentially do a technology refresh in the summer. Personnel, they're all across now. And the Prosperity Office concept, I want to highlight on a couple of different things. As you know, it's tourism, economic opportunity, and housing solutions. But what's really driving this are efficiencies, improved services, data-centric metrics, and collaboration. I'll highlight each of those a little bit. In terms of efficiencies, you'll start to see that in how we're managing grants. There's a considerable amount of money that flows through multiple programs, multiple grant programs. We'll have an opportunity to put them all on one platform and consolidate how we both receive applications, how we distribute those funds, and then how we monitor those funds. And Tommy Crosby will talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Improve services, that's our number one mission. We have an opportunity to have even greater economic impact as we combine these things and look at it through multiple lenses, and also do it in a balanced way where we focus on quality of life. And so as we bring these things in, I feel like it's a more holistic approach and a balanced approach. In terms of data-centric metrics, when we consolidate Visit Durango, we'll bring across 12 applications that are data subscription services, a tremendous amount of data. And when we combine that with the data that we own, we have a really different opportunity to do data analysis, create some metrics, and create value for our business partners and community. I'll just give you a simple example. We have data from emplanements at the airport. Now we have geofencing data of visitors that are drive-in visitors, and that's a combination of who's here and why they're here. And if we can start being predictive, we can potentially forecast and even help some of our hospitality partners around forecasting, and that would impact how they look at supply chain. So it's just those simple things that we can really think differently and think bigger about how we utilize data and how we take advantage of the collaboration between all the entities. Speaking of collaboration, as I stated earlier, sitting across the table with all my peers, it just really dawned on me how collaborative we are. This makes it very proactive and very intentional. There's opportunities to collaborate with entities that we wouldn't even think about, and that includes public safety and police department. That includes Parks and Rec. That includes the airport, and of course, ComDev. So very excited for these opportunities. With that said, I'm going to turn this over to Tommy and talk about how we are going to approach grant management.
Thank you, sir. Thanks, Mike. Afternoon, counselors. Just to kind of set the stage, as Mike was talking about the growth and collaboration, I just wanted to make note in regards to our grant programs. When I first started 3.5 years ago at the city distributed about 15 to 20 grants a year, totaling about $70,000 worth of funding. If you include the grants that were distributed by Visit Durango, which are now going to be grant programs that are lockstep with the city of Durango in 2025 and beyond, if you include those numbers in 2024, you would have seen 100 grants distributing north of $1 million. So we've seen some really fantastic growth, especially if you think of these grants as individual partnerships and in many cases, individual incentives. We've really tried to shift some of that mindset from traditional grant programs to the city making meaningful investments in community organizations, in nonprofits, in business infrastructure, in our arts and culture community. It's been pretty fun to watch and steward the growth of our grant programs. So with that, as Mike alluded to, we want to make sure that we are the best possible stewards of these grant programs. And with that comes consistency and reliability. One of the biggest shifts that we've seen from 2024 to 2025 is we're starting to centralize the software platform and the grant experience into one uniform software called Submittable. It's a really fantastic grant management software that is going to be used across all of our grant programs. So if you're applying for Lodgers Tax Arts and Culture or a Renew grant or a Durango Creates grant, the interface, the application process, and then all the better for staff, the reimbursement and the reporting side on the back end is going to be a lot more streamlined, a lot more uniform, and we're going to be a lot more tuned in to where and how those grant dollars are being used and what that return on that city investment is going to be looking like. Along with the changes to our software platform, you're going to start hearing this language around approaching our grant programs from a seed, grow, and scale perspective. So what do we mean when we say that? We don't want to constrain grant applicants of the types of project, especially when it comes to some of the arts and culture funding that we've seen in the past. We don't want to constrain them, but we really want to guide them of what are the ways that the city wants you to use this investment. And this seed, grow, scale has been a really helpful way to put an umbrella across all of our grant programs to have a little bit more uniform approach to be able to explain to the community, what bucket you might fall into. Are you a first-time grant applicant and you're looking to kind of test a project? Sounds like a good avenue for our seed program. How feasible is the event or the festival or the marketing initiative that you want to take on? Our grow scale, this is for folks who have been around the block a couple times. They have an event or a program that has seen some success. It's starting to grow some legs, and the city can increase their reach, increase their event numbers, their participants, their tickets sold. By a grant investment into their program. And then when we get to the scale level, this is for events that are proven successful. There are some of those staple events that we might see in the community or staple programs, some of those more foundational organizations that are looking to really expand the reach of their program and add a new service, add a new component, maybe start marketing to specific regions outside of Durango to target some of those off seasons or those slower months, or even like Mike was saying, with this additional data that we have, parts of our year that have traditionally not been considered the shoulder season, like the last 2 weeks in August when kids across the nation start going back to school, we see a little bit of a dip in our tourism numbers. How can we get so granular that we're starting to incentivize how we're funding projects down to the week or the weekend where we really want to see growth, and we really want to draw more visitors into town. So with that, tonight on your council agenda, you're going to see our first round of 2025 Lodgers Tax Arts and Culture Awards. You're going to see 22 projects funded at $260,000. This was put through a Lodgers Tax Arts and Culture working group, which has taken the role that the Creative Economy Commission used to play in reviewing and approving those grants. That will be on tonight's consent agenda. You'll see the award details, a brief description, and the dollar amounts in your packet. And this is going to kind of be our standard process moving forward. We're going to have council be the final decision-making body when it comes to all of our grant programs. So again, tonight it's Lodgers Tax Arts and Culture. In the coming months, you'll see our Durango Creates grant program, our Lodgers Tax Event Marketing, and then our Lodgers Tax Destination Management grant program, and our Renew grant program. All of these programs are going to have a specialized working group of subject matter experts that are familiar with the arts and culture scene, or they're event planners or event facilitators, or a member of our business improvement district, to make sure that the recommendations for funding that are being presented to council have been vetted and make sense for where our community and the city are at right now. The one I do want to note is our Renew grant. That one functions a little different. That's more of an incentive that the city will offer for oftentimes mandatory property or public improvements that a business would need to make. For example, if you need to repair the sidewalk in front of your business, or replace a door or a sign as you're moving into a new facility or location in Durango, that Renew grant is a matching grant. We tend to handle that administratively as staff, and we'll present those to council if they have met all of the grant eligibility criteria. But thank you for your time. I appreciate y'all letting me give you an overview of kind of this direction that our grant programs are heading in. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Just super excited, excuse me, super excited that being a part of some of this early on, to see where the new trajectory is heading is super inspiring and exciting. And thanks for all the work that you're continuing to do. I haven't been to the DCD meetings as much as I'd like, but hoping to go in March and really see some of the continuation of the great work that we did in the CEC. And then Mike, thanks for everything. I'm looking forward to talking more about this on 12.1 tonight. And again, continuing the good work that really moves the needle where we see bandwidth, that we need to create more bandwidth in. So thanks so much. Really appreciate both your work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I just had a quick question too. I was going to look it up during your talk, but I was listening to you. Is there a location where someone could go? I think we have so many great grant programs in Durango now, which is just wonderful. Is there a centralized location where someone could go and see all of our different grant programs? I'm sure on the website. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, great question. So that's going to be submittable, but to pair with that, we're going to have we have a city page where all of our grants are linked, but we really want to build that out and back that up with some of our annual reporting, like the quick snapshot report that was included in today's agenda packet, so we can have folks know what all of that funding was going towards. More or less creating a grant archive to pair with that grant resource list of a brief description. Hey, if I want a grant, I heard I can get funding for a new sign. Oh, here's the link for that umbrella page where you'll then be able to navigate to each individual grant.
Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Pro Tem Mayor, Council. My name is Bryce Current, and I'm the Chief, City of Durango. Our strategic plan focuses on safety and quality of life. Our vision is one department, one community, and one team, one Durango committed to building trust, protecting the vulnerable, and preventing crime. This is our 2020 through 2024 Part 1 offenses, but our focus today is on 2024 and kind of a year-end wrap-up. Violent crime trends, we had 2 homicides in 22 and 2 more in 2023 and 0 this year. We had a small increase in sexual assault, and a nuance there is 33% of those incidents occurred prior to 2024, but were reported during the 24 year. With aggravated assault, it increased 8% above last year. However, it was a 57% above the 4-year average, and 28% of those aggravated assault incidents were assaults on law enforcement, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. So while homicides were down, overall violent crime, we saw a 10% increase from 23, and even more importantly, a 38% higher increase compared to the 4-year average, which is a significant trend for us. Aggravated assaults, including domestic violence, road rage, and attacks on police, are rising, paralleling our 121% increase in drug crimes and a significant rise in alcohol crimes as well. Many out-of-town visitors are coming into our bars on weekends, contributing to hotel thefts, loitering, and late-night disturbances, and bar owners are confirming that trend, noting that groups renting rooms together. And we have meetings planned with a lot of the hotel owners and managers now to address that issue. Property crime, some of the trends we're seeing, burglary was down 5% below the 4-year average, but larceny and theft were up by 33% compared to 23 and 18% above the 4-year average. The reported theft incidents were thefts from vehicle, 18%. 13% were thefts of bicycles, and most of our thefts were actually from Walmart. Motor vehicle theft was 7% below the 4-year average and had an 89% recovered vehicles for the owners. Our clearance rates, robbery and aggravated assault, had the highest clearance rates at 80 and 86%, while larceny and theft clearance rates are low, around 30%, and lower in areas further away from the police department. So the total number of offenses in 2024 were 29% higher than 23 and 16% higher than the 4-year average, mostly due to shoplifting. Now, a key question is why property crime in Durango has surged since last January, and that's what we've been trying to find. So we found that Walmart revamped its loss prevention, hiring 5 additional staff members after 1 left, and they upgraded their cameras. They're reporting thefts several days later. Many of the cases involved elderly customers struggling to use the scanners and wasn't actually theft, but we're working with them on those reporting issues. However, in 24, Walmart still had $1.6 million in loss. and they doubled their self-checkout lanes, they improved their cameras, and they account for 57% of the big box store theft since 2022. However, they nearly doubled in reporting in 24. So this surge appears like to be reporting changes, increased checkout lanes, and reduced shopping supervision. Now, also Home Depot reports minimal theft, just 6 incidents in 2024, which we know isn't real, right? They also had about a $1.6 million loss. And so we don't think 6 people stole $270,000 at a time. So as we work with the store managers and continue to partner and look at these numbers and look at the reason why, these numbers are going to go way up before we start driving them down, and we're going to be looking for new baselines. As the businesses continue to enhance their cameras and implement our partnered strategies, like many of the Denver suburbs, crime reporting is going to rise before it starts stabilizing and then declining. So let's see, citations and accidents and criminal contact. So municipal traffic enforcement shows 40% increase of the 4-year average. So we're up almost 10% above the 4-year average on traffic contacts, and crashes are down almost 7%. With violent crime and alcohol drug violations rising, the legislative changes are weakening our ability to charge for fentanyl and other hard drugs. And those are new challenges. And new bills are now targeting our home rule municipal courts by capping sentencing as well. And we testified on that the other day, and we'll keep tabs on where that goes. So liquor violations are up 63% from the 4-year average and have nearly doubled in 2 years, likely driving the increase in the aggravated assault we're seeing and the assault on the police officers. Graffiti has decreased over 50% in 2024, and I'm knocking on wood as soon as you say this, but possibly due to more enforcement and working with our city partners to get rid of it as quick as possible with the removal processes. Even though we had 90 less traffic accidents and 24% more traffic tickets, our crashes only reduced by 7%, which is good, but we need to continue to look for more efficient ways here in Durango to reduce speed. Where our officers can focus more on distracted driving and DUI, which decreases accidents that actually hurt people. So with that being said, the speed enforcement cameras I'm going to talk about a little bit. So we gathered community members this previous year and received feedback in person. With most of the attendees were supportive and few were neutral. Without any negative folks in those groups when we met in person. Now, our online engagement was a little different via Engage Durango. We had 97 comments from 70 users, showing 55% of them were positive, 12% were neutral, and 32 had negative comments, and that was more diverse than the in-person input that we received. While some raised concerns about automated speed enforcement, most suggested camera locations and actually pinpointed where they should go. They highlighted community involvement. This initiative has been driven by the voices of Durango residents, and it's our voice at the police department that it's not okay to speed in this city. That's a walking, biking, and playing town. We're rolling out, as you can see, we're rolling out a timeline, and the most significant times on that timeline are probably going to be choosing a vendor around May 15th to the 22nd, working close with the city attorney's office and the judge, the municipal judge. And then around June, we should have a website rollout, confirm our process with the courts, the appeal process, and hopefully roll out the cameras at that point. So we have our 529 garage program is off and running. And so Mike Rustad got his new bike after 31 years with Albertsons, and he was the first to come over and register. And so our new program slogan is be like Mike and register your bike. And so, and he was glad to get the picture and be our spokesperson. So the owner is actually coming Memorial Day to set up a booth here in town and continue to push the program. So in reference to our partnerships, we're trying to create ownership, and we'll continue to keep you updated on the partnerships throughout town to reduce crime. As noted, managers and owners have more control over police, over offenders, locations, and opportunities than we do. And we're going to continue to create that ownership. City Market, as you saw in the paper recently, added parking lot cameras. That wasn't us in the paper. Everybody thought that was us. That was City Market that did that. Albertsons introduced private security and locking cart. Their wheels will lock, and they also have alarms. And so as the big box stores continue reporting and we continue to partner with them, expect new baselines and new numbers. Lastly, our annual report is published on our website and goes into depth in a high level of transparency into our department, including like use of force, technology, training hours, volunteer hours, operations, statistics, citizen complaints, and more. And if anybody from our community wants more insight on that report or any other report or any of these numbers that we're talking about today, we're definitely like an open book, and we'll visit with anybody. Any questions?
Chief, could we go back to the type 1 incidents slide, if you don't mind? And the reason I'm going to ask, the 2024 numbers seem high. That the last bar graph is great.
The last what?
The last bar graph, the one that we just went by.
The next one?
Yes, sir. Thank you. So I was kind of looking at these numbers, and at first it seems kind of alarming, but I had also thought, would incidents particularly go up if we are issuing more citations and maybe even failure to appears, and trying to get people into our specialty court to try to give them access to resources? Do you think that might have some part to play in why some of these higher numbers are showing through the data?
So this is a really good question. And I mean, one of the things you want to do anytime you look at numbers is just not focus on the numbers and chase the numbers, but look at why. And really got to look at causation and the correlation. And we were asked that by the examiners actually this week, how we get to the truth. And you can't really come up with a strategic plan until you actually get to the truth of what things are. And sometimes that actually means getting out of your desk and going to the stores where the data is saying that the big change is coming from, and finding out why. Like we found out some of those individuals some of them weren't thefts, right? But that wasn't the issue. We still got double the amount of thefts coming out of Walmart. So we got to find out why, and not just try to reduce the numbers of reports, but actually reduce theft. And so I was talking to the deputy chief, and we were researching places on the Front Range like Castle Rock. So, and I know you're talking about the citations and the problem solving court and all these things, but all these things, including what I'm about to talk about, they introduced cameras in the entire city, including the flock cameras that we use and all our neighboring counties use. But they also had Vigilon cameras all over their entire city, and besides the private residential areas. And so when they introduced those, crimes skyrocketed. But then after it skyrocketed and they got a new baseline, it plummeted. And so, yes, a lot of these programs that we're starting and a lot of these proactive strategies that we have, yes, they can drive the numbers up, but we really need to look at the numbers and see what's behind the numbers and get to the truth, and then stick to our strategic planning that's in alignment with the city's mission and core values.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Can you go back to that first slide? Yeah, that one. Oh, sorry, that one, this one. So, the 1-year comparison on some of these numbers also is pretty alarming. You really almost in every category, with the exception of murder. And so, at what point, these increases are, they may not be by, well, in all cases, they are even by number. So, at what point do you take extra steps and extra action to deal with theft and burglary and aggravated assaults? And it just seems, and robbery, it seems concerning in our community to see these trends taking place.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen chiefs and sheriffs play with numbers my entire career and try to justify things. And, you can say we're up in DUIs, so we're working harder fighting DUI, or DUIs are down, so it's working. So we're really doing a good job on DUIs, when really It's important to focus on the numbers and see what the trends are, the actual trends. And the two
Right.
trends that we're seeing that worry us the most is aggravated assault. And we just kind of brushed through that during this presentation.
Right.
But aggravated assault, and then seeing our liquor violations and our drug violations.
Because we went through that
skyrocket.
one quickly because there was another drug violation on here that was up, was it 127%?
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, those are pretty alarming for our little town.
So I'm glad you picked up on that. With those two things skyrocketing, it's no question when our officers have to put hands on somebody that they're assaulted. And so we saw half of the increase in aggravated assaults also in those numbers was on officers, actual officers. And we've seen that increase for 5 months, I think now, and to try to drill that down and find out why. And we think that's a direct correlation of people being intoxicated when we're dealing with them around town. And a lot of these people, then we try to find out where these people are coming from.
Right.
And we're talking to the bar owners, and that's where you got to get out of your seat and go talk to people and not just look at the numbers. And the hotel thefts, people are stealing sheets out of the DoubleTree, which is, that's not something we've seen. And a lot of these people are from out of town, and 4 or 5 people getting in a car together so they can afford a hotel room. And then, so now we're going to visit with a lot of things we can overcome with collaboration and partnerships. Like I said, the store owners and the managers, a lot of them have way more authority to affect.
Right.
And so we're collaborating with them. And I think I know where you're getting to, Counselor, with the court system and the problem solving court that we're also established and what we need to do there.
Mm-hmm. And your partnerships with the businesses, is it around, education and helping them suggesting things like cameras and
Yes.
more on-site?
Yes, and we
people.
know the numbers are going to go up. When we put flock cameras in front of Home Depot and Walmart and everything else, we're going to have people coming from Cortez and Farmington that are prolific. It's thievery, and we know who they are, and they tell us to watch out for them. As soon as they go through, we're going to know that they're in the parking lot. We show up, they're going to come out with a cartload of stuff, and that's going to be a statistical report. And so those types of things are going to go up. But there's things we can also, our mission is to actually prevent crime, not just respond to it.
Absolutely.
And that's where the education you're talking about is.
Mm-hmm.
And so, for instance, if I own a hotel and people are coming in and they're paying with a local ID, that's not against the law. If they're paying with cash, that's not against the law. If they're wanting an exit by they're wanting to park and they want a room by the exit, that's not against the law. But all this stuff together is suspicious, and maybe they're not riding the train. And so maybe that's not the people we want in our hotel rooms. And we can work with these members to prevent this crime in the first place, prevent these people from being in the rooms when you know that the room's going to get destroyed or whatever else.
And do you think that these increases in Part 1 offenses, that we're seeing here for our 1-year comparison and our 4-year comparison is comparable to other communities near us, or
Yeah.
are we an anomaly?
No, it's going up everywhere, but I'm trying not to concentrate on that. And because I just testified with a bunch of other chiefs about the municipal caps that they're trying to put on our municipal courts. And they were talking about their crime data and how property crime is going through the roof. And regardless of what's going on in the other cities, though, I think we can still maintain. There's another thing. I could have looked at our growth and started talking about our growth and how it's okay and it's acceptable, and start talking about acceptable rates too. But we're just trying to prevent crime no matter what's going on around the country. But yes, it is rising everywhere, especially property crime.
Yeah, it's just concerning. It's very disturbing to hear about the increase in aggravated assaults to our police officers. I mean, gosh, that's a terrible thing to hear. And I feel bad for all of you, and thank God for your training and skills that you have to try to de-escalate or whatever you do in that situation. But it must be very difficult.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues with that is our drug laws. Anything under 4 grams, hard drugs, heroin, cocaine, fentanyl, it's a misdemeanor and it's a ticket. And we have people, stealing things, and they have all these drugs on them. And we're trying with the legislature, and we tried to get a bill through a couple of weeks ago, and it didn't pass. So,
thank you.
Thank you.
progress. No worries. Having the library follow PD, it's sort of like listening to Gimme Shelter and then listening to the Kids Bop version of Kumbaya. Yeah, yeah. So we have good news. We always have good news. Yeah, so we saw a pretty dead even circulation with last year, but that's because we had a slight reduction in physical and a really high jump in digital, evening out, because digital is a smaller subset. But we're very happy to see steady growth, as we've talked about in previous months, because we have a fiscal model that is set for steady growth, and we're continuing to see that in things like circulation. However, we saw visitation go up. We saw really good numbers in our programming. We always have so much fun with Snowdown, and we have so many people come through. However, I do want to just give a shout out to our early literacy programs. We got a wonderful message from a city employee whose daughter comes to our toddler times, and even though she's not reading age yet, she was just reading a book to mom and said, "I am being nice and kind and reading like Miss Callie," which is just really exactly what pre-literacy is supposed to be. We teach them the motions of reading and get them to really love that, so books become their toys. And that leads to recognizing that those strange little shapes are letters, and those strange little letters make words. And that's what year after year builds into early literacy and, being ready for school achievement. So we were really happy with the quotes like that, but we're just, and of course, I'm just deeply proud of our early literacy program. The question we got from Baldridge was, how do you attract users to your library? And it popped right into my head, generational excellence. We don't track it through social media posts or through flyers. Every library does that. But you see these kind of programming numbers in a library size because people are bringing the third generation of kids to programs, sometimes more, because they've had so many decades of excellent service from my predecessors and from the staffs that work there. That's the difference. You just have to try not to mess up. We saw reference questions increase for the first time in a while. Don't know if that's just a statistical anomaly. As you've known, that's the one that kind of goes up and down, and we don't have a strong concern because we're not seeing any complaints about our reference service. Oh, there's not enough people to help, or oh, I didn't get any help printing. We see rave reviews for that and every form of feedback we can capture currently. So it seems like people are very happy with slightly less, reference use. As you can see, yet again, that trend holds that when we have new card holders, it's about 40% county, 50% city, 10% other. That other is somewhat out of state, and just a few other card holders that are courtesy cards. We had an 18% increase over last year in visitors. That was really nice to see. We had a very mild January, so people got bored with not having any snow, so they really made us their destination. We had a really fun day yesterday. This just when we had the snow come and we had 9R out of school, we saw like a rush on our board games for kids. So the families all had the same idea. So that was fun to see that we provide that extra service. We're starting to see a slight slowdown in public room reservations. They're up every month, but over a 2 to 3 year period, they were doubled, and now they're starting to hit capacity, which is a very good problem to have, but really opens up the need for more community venue space for the entire community besides the library. But we're doing our part and then some. And last but not least, I was able to participate in the month of January in the point of time count that every other year on odd number years, people go out into community and actually just directly interact with people who were unhoused the night before and try to get some demographic information for them so we can do a point of time count. And that is so that you can get HUD funding for a region through the continuum of care. I went out with a social worker. We did it in pairs. We went through the whole, there was a lot more in Durango than the rest of the county, but that is where a lot of it's centralized anyway. Unfortunately, we won't have those numbers until April, but we'll have a little bit of a snapshot. And just as a reminder, because I only talk about it every other year, the reason it's done in January, which, you have reduced numbers, is because HUD wants to look at when people are most likely to have the worst effects of sleeping outside and being unsheltered, which of course is in winter. So that's why that's put at that time as opposed to spring or summer, when we can sometimes see our numbers double or more. And so that's it for today, unless you have any questions.
I was going to ask you to go back to your library as space slide. I just wanted to share something with council. I'm giving a report tomorrow. And so Luke gave me some numbers. And when you look at kind of the monthly report, it's a little bit different, but he gave me some annual figures that I thought were extremely impressive. In 2024 at the library, I think you said they had roughly 288,000 visitors, 341,000 circulated items, 166,000 computer and Wi-Fi uses, and 1,200 public rooms booked. That's impressive. Very well used amenity in our community.
And so what we do is we look at all the state numbers that serve a service population of 65,000 or below, and we compare those numbers, and our goal is to get 15% above average in every one of our categories that we consider core services. And we do that in almost every service. And we're above average in every service. You just don't see a city that has just shy of 20,000 people doing numbers like that. And that's why I said to Baldridge, I can't put it to outreach, marketing, programming. It's simply generational excellence. We have been building on success for decades. And that's why we have such a wonderful and supportive community.
The other figure that you sent to me in that report, which I found very interesting, was I think you said we had something like 25,000 card holders.
Yeah.
And 15,000 of those were the city, but 10 was county.
40%. 40% are the county. We're truly a regional resource. And I didn't put it in the report because it's very inside baseball, but 2024 was also the year that they took us off the list of resort libraries. The state library changed their definition for resort, and we no longer fit the criteria, which we never really have. We all know Durango is not a resort town. It's a full-fledged community.
Absolutely.
And so having that designation removed, so that we're no longer being compared to a bunch of oranges has been really helpful for us. But, we've always messaged that we are a regional space. And, we're hoping to use new technologies like we talked about with Mike, and seeing, even other ways besides just card holders to show who our regional non-card holder users are as well, because that's a huge part of our usage, that people come in and never check anything out. We're just their office, we're their classroom, we're their meeting space.
Very well used amenity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have the flip book. So I need to be able to get to slide 3 so I can link it.
So go ahead and since you're joining to the meeting, let's have you share your screen.
Right here.
Check. I'll do your full screen. And then you can just take off. And then just use your arrow keys to navigate.
How do I get out of here so I can go to presentation? Because that's grayed out. So I need to do it down here.
To click it. Just click on it, and now it's available.
Oh, thanks, Evan. Okay.
And then just dock that.
Minimize.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And should be able to do that.
Thanks. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, councilors, Kelly Schmidt, Parks and Recreation Director. Sorry, we had technical difficulties uploading the presentation. For Parks and Recreation, we wanted to share with you all our 2024 annual impact report. This is a report that's required for our CAPRA accreditation. We are in the throes of that. So it's super timely that we were able to get this together, as it has not been authored in 4 years. So it was overdue, and we got it in just under the wire. Let's see. Oh, there it goes. So I took a playbook out of Tom Sleuth's annual report and wanted to add some fancy technology to ours as well. Before you do each have a copy of the paper version. So I won't go through every, you can read this offline, but basically it's just a high level, the first couple pages, and it also details how our mission within the department executes the mission of the city. Then pages 4 and 5, we feature our strategic plan goal of safety and quality and the alignment there. We also jump into our community collaborations. These collaborations are more than sponsors and partners. We have a financial commitment through strategic use agreements. We also have service agreements, and then also long-range planning agreements. And just to call out our partners, we've got 9R, Durango Botanic Gardens, Durango Mesa Park Foundation, Durango Trails, Four Corners Gem and Mineral Club, Kiwanis Club, Soil Outdoor Learning Lab, and Fort Lewis College. But we would be remiss if we didn't also give a shout out to our partners and our sponsors. All of these various logos that you see within the report really capture just the integration that the Parks and Recreation Department has within the community and the full support of our business community as well to sponsor our various events and gatherings and programs. Also on pages 8 and 9, we wanted to give a point in time, if you will, of our staff, which is growing. It's a great collective. We didn't have everybody. We do have 49 full-time, but you do see our comprehensive list there of our full-timers. I also wanted to feature just our investment that we do facilitate every year. 2024 is featured there in every single position and the professional development that we invested in them. This does come right back to everything that they employ for our citizens and in their job duties. Not only does this enhance their professional development, but it also enhances our services within the department. Pages 10 and 11 are just a highlight and definition of all the services provided by the department. And then pages 12 and 13, we jump into our by the numbers. These are very typical of annual reports, and I'll just go through these rather quickly because I know we're short on time. In 2024, the department issued 15 river vendor permits. We sponsored or hosted 243 community events. 12,110 city trees were inventoried in our forestry management plan that we maintain. 309 acres of parkland are managed by our department. 3,410 acres of open space. We had 20,325 program participants. We had 366,177 recreation center patron participants. Field use hours came in at 6,911. 17,042 Chapman Hill and rink patrons visited the center in 2024. And last but not least, 8,974 gymnastics center patrons. And just quickly by the numbers, we wanted to call out our adherence to fiscal responsibility. We came within $16,000 of our council appropriated budget in the good. One thing that isn't typical of an annual report is a 5-year quantitative summary. We wanted to honor the way this report has been done in the past, not only to include it here, but also to get caught up since we didn't have this data comprehensively in one location. Let me back up. The importance of maintaining this report every year allows staff to see at a glance, basically trends in our overall cost recovery. And so it can drive our KPIs. It can also celebrate our wins. On pages 16, 17, and 18, we jump into our capital improvement projects. The page 16 is a snapshot out of our 2020 Parks and Open Space and Trails Master Plan. And what this is an inventory of prioritized desirable amenities and programs that was gathered from the survey of our citizens. What staff did is we took those and we wanted to tell the story of what we have, what we've accomplished, and what we're still working on, and what doesn't exist still to this day. So that gives us a snapshot and a goal to employ in our next and focus on to see if it's still a priority for the community in our next master plan, which is slated for 2026. On page 17, you can see in calendar order our accomplishments and our capital projects. And then on page 18, we've got all of our approved and planned projects for this year. And just the last couple pages are some snapshots from the year. Happy to answer any questions.
No questions, just a comment. I really, really like the page 12 by the numbers. I think that's so indicative of how much use our community is getting out of our parks and recreation amenities. Especially, I note the 366,000 users to our recreation center. That is massive. And the 88,000 visitors at Lake Night Horse. It's
For
just
sure.
really impressive numbers.
Yeah, it really is.
And so thank you for putting that together.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Just one quick thing to add. You know, we ask our staff to go out and we ask them to document and gather data and hours and maintenance and all the things. And a lot of the staff will push back on that. Why are we doing this? And so I did share this at our last staff meeting, and it was really a light bulb moment for a lot of them, and they really appreciate it too. So this document will be one that we do every year going forward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, City Council, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, Devin King, Multimodal Manager, and stepping in for Sarah Hill while she is out. Going to start off with our presentation just talking about Annual Transit Employee Appreciation Day, which is March 18th. So every year we put down a table down in the lobby for riders and folks to fill out cards, and then we put them up in the rider or transit driver lounge later for everybody to kind of see. So it's always a fun thing that's going on, that all the transit drivers get to see all the appreciation. There we go. So highlighting Durango Transit Snowdown Service, City Council's lodger's tax funded a lot of the free rides as well as Ride Responsible. So that funded the regular transit service along with a shuttle from the fairgrounds to the transit center during the Snowdown Parade. And then the Business Improvement District and Snowdown sponsored the microtransit rides on Friday and Saturday evening during the end of the week. So that covered over 6,600 free transit rides, again, which is just a great opportunity for folks to get downtown, alleviate parking problems, as well as alleviate, hopefully, drunk driving. So very happy with that. For multimodal, we're just going to highlight one project. We are finishing up the Midtown Safety and Connectivity Improvement Project. So quick timeline, you know, this project started quite a while back in 2021. We worked through the site analysis inventory as well as the CDOT traffic study. And then we moved into 30% design and community engagement in 2023, and then it moved it up to the 60% design in 2024 with community engagement And then the project was presented before you all back in September of 2024. And then the final design, again, we should be finishing up just in the next week or so and getting it out online for folks to see. And then we anticipate construction in 2027. So one of the big things with Midtown, and I think all of our CIP projects, is community engagement. It's really important for transportation projects because they affect everybody. So, you know, we get out there, we try to meet with businesses face to face. We're also trying to meet with public users, other stakeholders. So we started that process on the front end, reaching out to businesses that were directly affected by access or property, like right in front of their property, we were doing improvements. So we reached out to staff, had one-on-one meetings, and then started the design. And then we had a public open house where we said, hey, here's some alternatives and options. Got feedback there, and that was in May in 2023. And then based on that feedback, well, actually, we got more feedback. In the summer of 2023, we went to 2 farmers markets where we got feedback. We posted up at Rotary Park trying to capture trail users. And then we also had an online survey. And from all that feedback, we made improvements to the plan and then updated it to what we refer to the 60% design, which at that point, we've done a lot of the hard engineering. We've looked at things like drainage, slopes, cross slopes, ADA compliance, etc. And we also had a focus group for 4th to 15th and 3rd intersection, which basically kind of through that whole process, we opted to take that portion out of the design and just move what we consider the true Midtown portion forward. So now the project is just 13th, 14th, 15th Street, and then East 2nd Avenue corridor. So it no longer includes that 4th to 15th and 3rd intersection. And we had a 60% design meeting and an online poll for those pieces as well. And then just recently, we have followed up with a few business owners. Durango Montessori we followed up with, as well as Handcrafted House and Dan over at Famburger, just kind of covering some more of the project and going through that, and heard very positive comments from all 3. And then moving towards parking updates, kind of the big one is Wade Moore is retiring. So for those of you that have met Wade, he's been around for quite a while, 13 years, I think, in the transportation department. You know, a few of the things that Wade has really championed is, you know, credit cards at meters, as well as he's been a big champion for the parking meter pay by cell, which will be rolling out later this spring, which I'm sure a lot of folks are very excited about. But he's also been kind of the one that really championed the customer service aspect of the parking enforcers downtown. You know, I think instead of them just being enforcement, they've really become a part of the community as helping people out, you know, like being that education or that first touch point for folks in our community, helping them know which way to go, how do I find the train, etc. And that's really been driven by Wade and his leadership. So we're happy for his retirement, but sad to see him go. And that's all I have to present. Any questions?
Good afternoon, Council. Tony Vicari, Airport Director at the Durango La Plata County Airport. Provide a quick update on airport activity. Quick run through on the January numbers. You can see off to another strong start following a record-breaking year in 2024. Airline traffic in the month of January was up 13% over 2024, and you can see some of our other metrics there down the line. The few that are holes there weren't yet reported when we published this, but our rental car contract days were up 11%, so a little bit lower than the baseline, and our terminal concession revenue was up 8%. So strong numbers across the board. We'll close out February here relatively quickly, anticipating not quite as sharp of an increase, probably up in the range of 8 to 11% based upon our semi-actuals that we have in at this point. But regardless, looking for a strong overall start in terms of activity at the airport to kick off 2025. Here you can just see an ongoing chart showing the daily TSA throughput at the airport, the orange line being current year in 2025 according to last year. So just showing a little bit of a depiction of overall traffic. You can see we really started with a stronger gap in the first part of the year. January was a very strong month for us, and we've seen in the last 10 days, 20 days or so that has narrowed down a little bit.
Jumping over to the airline side, no major changes to share, consistent flight schedules from what we've previously discussed with council. Just another reminder that we're getting a little closer to our first ever daily nonstop service to Houston on United that will kick off in the month of June. That'll actually start on weekends in late May, leading up to the daily service period, which starts on the 26th of June and runs through the core summer season. On the project side, a couple of updates here. Phase 1B of the terminal project continues to hum along quite smoothly. That project, as you know, broke ground back in October and moving along very swiftly. We're currently still on track to be able to open the new baggage claim and arrivals hall, which is the first functional piece of Phase 1B in the August or September timeframe of 2025. That project is moving along and totally enclosed at this point, where roof decking is complete, exterior waterproofing is in place, and beginning to work on kind of exterior framing and getting everything locked in. So moving along pretty fast there. Wastewater system upgrade. This has been a long time coming for the airport, but we actually start that project tomorrow. So we'll be initiating a major upgrade of the Three Lagoon wastewater treatment facility at the airport. So looking forward to moving along on that project. And then also in the month of April, we're anticipating the delivery of a new aircraft rescue firefighting truck, which has been on order for 18 plus months through a manufacturing backlog. Our staff are actually on site in Minnesota at the manufacturing plant right now, be inspecting that vehicle before it's ultimately delivered to the airport. So looking forward to welcoming that new piece of equipment. And then you can see the long list of other projects that are underway here in 2025. I won't spend too much time on these. Happy to take any questions. The main one I would just point out is the first one in the top left, which is the next phase of parking lot expansion. That project is currently out to bid. We held a pre-bid conference recently, have a lot of local contractors engaged. Look forward to closing those bids here in the next 10 days and getting a contractor under agreement to move forward with construction. We're currently anticipating the May-June timeframe to initiate that project, and we'll be under construction through a large portion of the summer. The good news with that, even though summer is the actual peak time for overall airline traffic at the airport, it is not a peak time for overall parking. So it works out well that our construction season aligns quite well with a non-peak time in overall parking. We instead see that peak for us in the fall and over the holiday season is when we see our maximum pressure on the parking lots. But I would say another big event that we do have coming up is spring break, which is right around the corner. Local spring break starts in about a week and a half. And so that is something the airport's ramping up. We're not standing up our full remote parking operation like we did over Thanksgiving, but we are prepared for some contingency plans to be able to park additional vehicles if needed during that event. And lastly, just a few photos of the ongoing process and project here on phase 1B of the terminal. These are actually outdated at this point. The roof is fully decked out, and you'd see the entirety of the outside is now waterproofed and working towards enclosure at this point, just in the last 2 weeks since this project or platform was published here. So things are moving along great. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Have you received any feedback regarding our terminal expansion on 1A?
Yeah, no, feedback has been very positive. I've yet to hear a negative comment on the new space. I would start first with the actual occupant of it, which is United Airlines.
Right.
You know, they're a core tenant, obviously, of the airport and a key entity we need to keep very pleased with our market. And United has been very pleased with the operating platform.
Good.
It's worked out great for them from a tech perspective, a physical space aspect, big upgrades in terms of their customers having direct access to brand new restrooms, concessions right next to their space. So we've heard very positive things with United, which is a big win for us. And then very similarly on the passenger traffic side, I think we'll only see that continue to improve as we move into the next phases of the project, because ultimately, you know, that concourse, the new terrazzo hard surface concourse that's on the back wall there, it just sort of dead ends into a wall. In the next phase of phase 1B, that wall actually gets demoed and that concourse keeps going basically, and it'll connect down to the future TSA screening checkpoint and its new location, as well as the full kitchen and bar area. So it'll actually open up that space even more than it is now. But good news is it's already in a good place, and I think we'll see it get better.
I figured you were getting some good feedback because when I've been in there, I mean, I don't even know what we did before the expansion because it's well used already.
It is, yeah. No, it is definitely fully occupied on a daily basis.
Yeah. The construction, also one other question, the construction at the ticket counter, what is that for?
Yep. So we're just remodeling overall. So in addition to the new spaces, we're remodeling the majority of the existing terminal. So we have the south end of the ticket counters closed right now. So it's everything from new ceilings, new lighting, new carpet, new painted walls, upgrading fire sprinkling is a big one to meet some fire code changes that have upgraded. So that entire area will be refreshed. You'll see that actually open in roughly the early April timeframe.
Okay.
And we're going to move to the next section. So actually our airlines are going to temporarily move their ticket counters down to the area that's closed right now. And where the airlines are today will be closed in another chunk. So our construction team can get in there, do that similar work before we ultimately move the airlines back. So there's a lot of temporary relocations through the process here, but everything will continue to be uninterrupted.
And then one more question. When we close the parking lot for construction this summer, how many spaces will be impacted?
Yeah, good question. So the good news with this project is it's an expansion of our main parking lot, but on both ends of it. It's got kind of a north and south end. We're basically doing an infill project up to some surrounding loop roads. It's a kind of a mix of green space and sort of empty area at the edges of parking lots.
Oh.
So the good news is we don't need to fully close a parking lot.
Okay,
We'll be
good.
closing adjacent parking spaces. We anticipate we'll lose somewhere in the range of 20 to 30 total parking spaces
That
while
matters.
while we construct. So the impact should be relatively modest through that period.
Okay, good.
Mhm.
Wonderful.
Yeah, last year's project was much more difficult because we were constructing an existing lot in whole, and so it was a much
Right.
tougher process.
That's good news. I was wondering if we needed it to inform the community, but it doesn't sound like we need
No,
to.
not at this point.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. I'm Laura Rick from Public Works. I have to apologize, I don't have any show and tell today for you next time, but I've got good pictures, so yeah, exactly. That's it for me. Okay. So we're going to talk about what's been going on in Public Works, going over January and February. So at the water treatment plant, staff spent a few weeks in January performing our annual filter surveillance program. And this involves draining each filter one at a time and measuring and testing the media that's in it and then cleaning it. So cleaning it involves power washing the walls and everything in it, except for the media. And then we'll superchlorinate the media. And this program helps us track the filter performance year over year and helps us make any necessary adjustments to optimize their operation throughout the year. We also submitted the necessary fluid modeling to CDPHE, or the State Health Department, for the new 3 million gallon tank that will be constructed at the water plant. And the modeling ensures that the tank is going to provide sufficient time with our disinfectant to ensure that all of the pathogens have been taken care of before we send it to town. The wastewater treatment plant staff replaced a rotary lobe pump in the fats, oils, and grease, or FOG, receiving system. And the style of pump that they have ensures continual movement of material, even if it's thick. As you can imagine, that stuff is. So we also completed the fiber connection between our SCADA servers at both treatment facilities, and this is basically the brain of the treatment plants. This way, if either one of those servers goes down, the other one will turn on and serve as backup to the other one, and that ensures just consistent coverage with the SCADA program. No downtime. So in addition to the preventative maintenance performed in our water and sewer system, like the valve exercising and rotting the sewer mains, the C&D crews were really busy in January and February responding to emergency calls. And many of them, if you remember, the very cold temperatures that we had, sub-zero temperatures that we had, were in the middle of the night during that. They cleared out a big grease blockage in the sewers and removed about 4 huge trash bags of shale bits from the sewer system. It was likely in an area of the sewer system that has a lot of inflow and infiltration, which lets debris come into the sewer system. Basically clogged that area though. They were able to clean it out though and get stuff flowing. They responded to a break on Clovis Drive in early February, of course, at 2 a.m. that caused 2 sinkholes in the roadway. So that top left picture shows the pavement collapsed into the hole. And right underneath the pavement in this area, there's fabric that where the water bubbled up, it followed the fabric under the pavement until it found a weak spot further down the road, and then it created another sinkhole down the road. Yeah. So when they uncovered the pipe finally, after removing all that pavement, they found it in this condition on the right-hand side. It had pits, holes, and a longitudinal crack about 6 feet long down the pipe. But that wasn't the end of the drama, of course. So after they repaired it, they bedded it and they filled it with flow fill because you might remember at the beginning of February, we had that other snowstorm that happened and they knew it was coming in 2 days. They couldn't pave in time. So they filled it up with flow fill all the way to the top, and we're working with streets to make sure that they could come by and plow it. It would be fine. Well, as they were repairing that other sinkhole further down, a car came through and went through their traffic barricade where it says road closed, barricade through it, and the guys are waving them down saying stop, stop, and the person drove right past workers in the work zone and straight into the wet flow fill. So thankfully the car actually got stuck on the pavement, but had it not gotten stuck, the driver and the car would have been straight down below the flow fill, buried in the flow fill. So reminder, stay out of work zones, pay attention to road closed signs, watch out for working crews. Yeah. But PIO helped us put out a great PSA about that. So that was nice. All right, in the streets division, the streets crew has been using our new asphalt recycling machine to patch and repair potholes around town. The machine can produce up to a ton of asphalt every hour, and they've continued to clean out and camera storm drains to identify any problem areas in the system. Notice on the picture on the right how the metal pipe on the side is just completely corroded through. So this is why we're replacing metal pipes around town with plastic. And we've talked before about the fact that we have hot soils or corrosive soils around much of town. So this is a perfect example of that. The crew started a new preventative maintenance program for our plow trucks that uses a rust preventer and a new type of lubricant, and that'll help extend the life of our plow trucks. And Streets and Trash and Recycle helped with barricading Main Avenue during snowdown by parking their big trucks on the side streets. And this was in an effort to help protect Main Avenue during the event. And like I said, they also helped C&D with that Clovis repair, providing extra hands and extra equipment to repair that asphalt, making sure it was ready for that snowstorm that came just 2 days later. Our new trash and recycle manager, Jimmy Smith, attended a training through the Colorado Circular Communities Enterprises, and he learned about different avenues to pursue grant fundings for our trash and recycle division. And we finally received 3 new trucks that had extremely long lead times, 3 years. One was a front load truck used for commercial sized cans, and we got 2 automated side load trucks, which are used for the residential sized cans. And the crew has several new members, but every year we do a refresh for everyone about snow operations in the trash trucks that involves teaching them how to safely and properly chain up, how to repair the chains on the trucks, and how to take them off. And as you can imagine, the chains are really large and heavy. So making sure that they know how to do this safely is really important for them. Our capital improvements program is changing our process from the sponsoring divisions or departments managing the design and then handing them off to CIP. We're changing it to be CIP and the sponsoring divisions or departments work together from the very start of the project. So getting everybody in the room at the inception of the project, and this shifts it from to a cradle to grave workflow process to increase our project management, our budgeting efficiency, and the communications for each of the projects. So any projects that are not yet to 30% design, we'll use this new process. And if they're past 30% design, we'll just continue how they're going. We're now fully staffed. We welcomed Katie Moody as a project manager, Harlow Gerdian as an inspector, and Joe Overman as a senior inspector. And as we mentioned last month, Lake Nighthorse entrance project has been completed and is closed out. And the Florida Outfall project up at the water plant also reached completion in January as the controls, the electrical, and the communication systems were commissioned. So it's ready to go for the start of irrigation season, sending Florida River water over to the golf course and the college. And as we head into spring, the construction season is fast approaching, meaning County Road 250, 251, and North College are going to be starting back up soon. We're working really closely with PIO and our project managers to ensure coordination with the traffic control and public messaging throughout the construction season, but giving a heads up now that construction season is starting soon and there will be impacts to traffic throughout the spring, summer, and fall. But we'll try and stay on top of any public messaging that needs to come out. The engineering division approved the final plans for the Durango Mesa waterline and main entrance road, and the project's been awarded and is awaiting construction in the spring. I just want to note, while the roadway up there starts on Highway 3, the waterline is actually going to start over by Sonic, by the Horse Gulch Trailhead parking lot. It's going to go up and over the hill. So while that is being installed, there will be impacts to that area of the parking lot. The County Road 250, 251 annexation was introduced to council back in January. And so far we've held 2 stormwater focus groups, one in January, one in February, and we actually have one more next week. So the first 2 were introductory meeting and then focusing on the cost of service elements of regulatory compliance, operations and maintenance, capital improvements, as well as looking into the research that we've done on funding sources. And the 88 ramps projects plans are complete and they're going out to bid soon. And finally, we attended the La Plata San Juan Futures Fair at the fairgrounds to help introduce students to public works careers. HR, Parks and Rec, and PD joined us there. We gave out lots of swag and met a lot of really great kids there. And PIO continues to help us put out really educational, sometimes disgusting, funny public service announcements, getting what we do out in front of the public eye. So thank you, PIO. Do you have any questions for me? Okay. All good. Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Clancy Nixon. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist. This is the monthly report. We're catching up for December and January. In January, I think in February, actually, I did my annual report. So back in December and January, we hosted both months Nerds Night Out Trivia. We had full houses. There wasn't a spot for another team at Esoterra for both of those months. A big thanks to Luke for hosting that December one. He arrived in his Temu Santa suit, so a little bit of a different brand going on there with that engagement. We also did Meet the Chief. That was, I wanted to just share this story really quick because Chief Current was contacted, as well as myself, by a partner here in town to help address some misinformation that was going around in the, specifically in the immigrant community here in Durango, and requested that we come and speak to a group of individuals about potential ICE presence and what folks should do if they should get stopped and things like that. And so Chief and a couple of his crew showed, as well as myself, to speak with this group of mostly monolingual Spanish-speaking individuals to help address some of that misinformation. And I think that this is really special because we were contacted to show up, and the rhetoric that's going on right now, the amount of trust that we've built in order for us to show up in that space at this point in time, I was really happy about and impressed with, and a huge thanks to Chief and his crew for getting that going. The following night, we hosted our Engage Durango forum. That was at the rec center. Thank you, Councilor Yazzie, for showing. And we had 3 of those individuals who showed up who were, again, monolingual folks to that forum as well. So just some successes there that I wanted to share, that the amount of trust we had to build in order to get folks to show up to a government function these days. I just wanted to highlight that. I think we're doing all right. Especially given that, you know, with Pew and Gallup, no matter who you look at, trust is at historic lows when it comes to people trusting government right now at all levels. In addition, we had, through that Engage Durango forum, we had Mike French was presenting on housing and economic development. It was a really wonderful presentation, so thank you to Mike. Staff in the breakout session also heard comments. A couple of themes came out of that, comments about affordability as well as speeding, perceived speeding in town. There was a wide variety of topics, but those 2 kind of stuck out. And then just generally people wanting to build connection with some of our staff members. And I thought that was really wonderful as well. Laura already touched on the stormwater focus group, but yes, next week we're hosting our 3rd meeting. We'll have 1 or 2 meetings more, and then they're planning on coming back and presenting about the feedback that we've received for each of those meetings. So the good news is that 100% of folks, when we surveyed them, when they show up, have said that yes, they will return. So pretty good markers for our public engagement efforts. Some upcoming engagement opportunities that we have a neighborhood walk and roll. Well, that's already passed, and Councilor Yazzie stepped in for that one last night. I'm sure she'll fill you in here soon. We also have Nerds Night Out trivia that's happening on March 13th, 6:30 to 8:30, continuing to meet at Esoterra Cider Works. And then the Engage Durango Forum is back for March on March 25th at the Rec Center with the theme of there will be a presentation about Durango Mesa Park and the updates going on there. I also, for that Nerds Night Out trivia night, we may have some AHS students helping with the question development, so it may be a little bit different, which I'm excited about. And then they're also doing, I've been meeting with their classes, may also be doing some other projects, like they've mentioned a documentary for getting young people involved in local government, which I'm excited to see that roll out. The walk and roll, we also have an additional request that just came through over the weekend that I'm working with getting something scheduled potentially for the end of this month or early next month. And we're missing a slide, but the Engage Durango website as well. There was a graph in there, but it was pretty slow for December and January, so nothing too crazy to report there. Any questions?
Those are all the updates. Meeting adjourned.